Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the Me Time book launch series. It's brought to you by the one and only 5 Minutes for Me. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson, and I'm a podcaster, best-selling author, coach, and mentor. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you guys today, along with the amazing Marg Booth and Lauren Finnen, who are the founders and co-founder of both 5 Minutes for Me and this amazing book that we're about to launch today. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be diving deep into the topic of productivity, exploring practical tips, insights on how to make the most of your life. How do you set goals, manage distractions, and optimize your workflow? Now, joining us today, we've got an amazing panel of experts, and we have the amazing Steve Lewis down there on at the bottom of our screen, who's got extensive experience across developing commercial products, Celia Barsby, who's an amazing creative visionary, and Thalia-Maria Tourikis, who's a self-care advocate. And together, we're going to be exploring how to achieve a healthy work-life balance where productivity and self-care actually work hand in hand. So without further ado, I want to say a huge big welcome to these guys to our amazing launch. And I want to say to you guys to hang around because you're going to hear from some amazing experts that have worked all over the globe to help you really optimize your productivity to get the best out of your life. So welcome to the panel, you guys. It's fantastic to have you all here.
Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome. So I'm going to kick off today's series with Marg Booth, just telling us a little bit about why 5 Minutes for Me? Why did you start this, Marg? And why did we kind of transition into creating a book? Because we've got some amazing contributors who have contributed to both the 5 Minutes for Me app, and now we've taken them and put them inside of the book. Why did you actually do that?
So thank you, Tracy. And I firstly want to say thank you to everybody for being here this morning. And it's an absolute honour and a privilege to have you all here and as a part of what we're doing and being on this journey with us. So my background is that I have owned a professional speakers bureau for over 20 years. And with the onslaught of COVID and everybody thrown into the chaos globally of having to just live in this new world, the only inquiries that we had were around resilience and mental health for people and how do we still be productive through all of these, stressful times. And from that, I wanted to do something different and I didn't want to create more stress for everybody. How do we learn these things and how do we learn them quickly? Because everybody's so stressed and time poor these days. So we came up with this concept of let's get some experts talking about some content and some tips to help people in a short 5-minute frame, because I believe not everybody can spend another 30 or 60 minutes a day to help themselves, but we believe everybody around the world should be able to find 5 minutes to be able to listen to these audios on the app. So the app actually started as 5-minute audios, which has been fabulous. And then through that, we've just realized what a bulk of talent that we have here. And not everybody learns in the same way. Some people are auditory and some people like to have a physical book. So the strategy of actually putting some of these specialist speakers together into this book and making this beautiful, calming and fabulous book that we've got now, we're absolutely just so thrilled with that. So in a very quick story, that's basically been the process of how this has all happened. And the book now, Me Time, is about having something interactive as well so that people can actually do some commenting in and to help themselves in that way. So our book, which you will have seen, Me Time, I cannot tell you how just over the moon and how thrilled I am at the quality, not just of the book, but of the actual presenters in there and our presenters on here today. So, I just want to say again, it's an absolute honour and a privilege to have you all as a part of this journey with us. And, we wish great success for all of you as well as everybody that comes on board with the app and also the book to use those in our daily lives to help the stresses of life and to make themselves more productive at the end of it. So thank you all. And yes, that's the story of how it's all come about.
Well, I think this is one of those moments where we would say, well, congratulations to both you and Lauren Marg, because, during the last number of years, there's no doubt in saying that people have found it quite stressful, with COVID and everything else that's gone on, and particularly in this world that we live in now, trying to get as many things done in just 24 hours a day sometimes seems insurmountable and overwhelming for a lot of people. So let's get stuck in and start talking about kind of this piece around productivity, because we as humans, mums, dads, grandparents, just trying to be as productive as we possibly can. I want to know from Celia, what does it actually mean to you to create a productivity in your life, to create a productive life?
Thank you. Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be on this panel, talking about something so close to my heart that involves creativity, but also that productivity, getting things done, moving forward. And for me, productivity is very much about making progress, moving through my day in that creative lifestyle with joy and that love of life. And I think sometimes productivity can feel quite a heavy word. I talk a lot about the energy and the frequency of words, and to be productive, I can feel myself going, oh, I'm not doing enough. But if we approach that from a creative aspect, then that just lifts we get to play, this is work. This is how beautiful is this? We get to have a wonderful conversation about how we can work in alignment, I think. So that's productivity for me, that it's about being in alignment with my values and my goals.
I love the fact that you've spoken here about, it being joyful, and you want to do something, you don't want to get yourself into a space where productivity feels really heavy. You want to get to a point where you're utilizing your creativity. It feels like fun, and therefore it's going to be a much more enjoyable experience to actually enable yourself to move forward and take action on the things that you need to do. So Thalia, when we're thinking about sort of that space, and bringing forward productivity, but also melding together that with creativity, what sort of tips do you have for somebody who wants to do that? Maybe they're really creative, and often we can get stuck in that space of kind of creating more and more and more and more, but not necessarily being able to complete or finish things or be productive. Do you have any tips for somebody who might be in that particular space?
So for me, I just think productivity is not one size fits all. It is unique to the individual. So I would say to not obviously always copy what everyone else is doing, and kind of do what works for you. And I'm in the position where I believe in a mindful productivity, where we are trying to perform at our best. So we are dedicating time to self-care, we're dedicating time to rest, so we can show up every day as our healthiest. So it's not always about waking up at 5 a.m. and filling up your to-do list with task after task after task, without really thinking or reflecting on what you've just done. I believe that after you've done a task, you should take like a little 2-minute break, kind of reflect on what you've just done, have a breather, go for fresh air. And this also, again, helps with the creativity as well, because if you're constantly busy, you're constantly working, you will get to the point where you're exhausted. And when you're exhausted, your creativity is the first to go as well. So I think it's just building those spaces in your schedule where you are recuperating yourself after each task, and you're not hitting burnout, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a really important point too, is that we're not, in the space of productive to the point where you're actually burning yourself out. So I want to ask Steve this, because I know his experience and him being involved in the development of so many different brands, and you obviously would be doing a lot of those things, Steve, when you're developing brands simultaneously. So when you're somebody who's working at that really high level, and you've got multiple multiple tasks on the go. You've got kids and a family that you need to, you need to tend to as well. What sort of things do you do to make sure that you can be the most productive, but not just at work, but across all facets of your life? What sort of things do you do?
Thank you. And again, to add to the voice of my fellow contributors and panelists, I'm really proud to be involved in the project, and it's a beautiful book and it's a wonderful podcast. So I hope a lot of people take a lot of lessons from it. For the question of productivity, I do find it challenging at times to juggle everything, personal life and business life, especially having so many different facets of my business life. I find I take a lot out of really understanding the goals of every project, and not just from the components that I bring to the table, but the complete picture. Because my productivity is only the piece of a bigger puzzle, and unless I understand the end goal and understand, maybe it's my customer, maybe it's understanding my customer's customer, and the relationship that consumers will have with the products that I'm developing or the services, et cetera. Unless I can completely understand the picture, I can't set up a reliable process to be productive within. And I take that into my personal life as well, to really spend time to understand what are the end goals and what are the end goals that my piece of the puzzle contribute to, so that I can best set up that input versus output, which is the end definition of productivity. It's getting the expected goals out of the inputs required.
I love that you've brought that up, because, often we can get really busy in our day to day and we forget to think about, okay, what is the big picture? What exactly am I trying to achieve here? So what you're saying here is that we really want to sit down before we start anything, and whether it be in, just in your day to day life, or whether it's in business, we're thinking about what is the big picture and what role do I actually have to play in that, and then start breaking it down. And then you're able to inch your way forward to get to a point where you're able to deliver the required outcomes of whatever that product or that project is. So I love that. So Lauren, I want to go to this. When you were creating the book, you were on a really tight deadline, right? It was like, came up with this concept and the idea. You knew you had all these amazing speakers inside of the app, but really wanting to give them an opportunity to shine in a different way. And as Marg said, you're thinking about, what are all the different ways that people learn? Not everybody is audio learners. So you were wanting to put something together that was really tangible. Talk us through the process there, and how did you go about managing things with such a tight deadline?
Look, to be honest, I took it day by day. We sat down with a little bit of a goal. I really didn't know where it was going to take us. We were just playing around, to be honest. We had a goal at the end, and we wanted around 30 chapters in the book. But then I really just wanted to mix it up and have, as I said, a little bit for everybody in there. So some of them are more story-based, some of them are more physical, writing your little tips and tricks in there. Other ones are just little like dot point sort of thing, points. So it's tried to make it a little bit for everybody. In terms of productivity to get it done, I'm a massive list person, and I tried to be as realistic as possible. And the more I go through it, the more I do everything with this book. Being realistic is the best thing when it comes to productivity, as opposed to writing, I know I've got 50 things on my to-do list, but I'm going to pick 4 that I have to get done today. And I'm going to allow, when I go up, that'll take me an hour. I allow at least an hour and a half, so I have some breather time in between. And that makes me feel productive, because then I finish something and I go, oh, I finished 15 minutes early. And that makes me feel good, but I can still manage to get through the to-do list without getting too overwhelmed. Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing that for you to say, it makes me feel good, right? So, I mean, a lot of our productivity is often based on the way in which we feel and how a task or a project that you're working on, how you actually feel about that. And it's interesting that you should say that, because you writing your lists and working through those and getting to a point where you're able to tick them off. Like, if you're obviously, Lauren's a big list taker, I would say I am an absolute list taker too. I wrote copious amounts of notes. I like to tick things off because it makes me feel good about the fact that I've been able to achieve something. So if you're somebody who maybe hasn't adopted list taking, or even post-it notes for that matter, that might be a little tip that Lauren has just dropped there, a little value bomb that you could take away and just start writing down some little lists. And you'll just, as you go through the day, you'll start seeing that, hey, I'm actually making progress, and start feeling really good about yourself. And it gives you that little bit more of a boost and momentum to keep going. So, Celia, what do you think, like when you think about productivity, what are some common myths that you've encountered about productivity?
Oh, great question. Thank you for that one. I think it is, we live in a very different world now. We live in changing times. And I always talk about that, things, we don't have to do things the same as we have always done. You picked up on that word variety, that they can look very different. So some of the myths that I think, come up for us is that you have to be working, who has 9 to 5 jobs. Now, lots of people do. Lots of people have that structure within their day, but there's more flexibility now. So I think some of the ideas about, you have to do things the same way as they've always been done, that's not a creative way of being productive. Creativity, when we bring creativity and that whole approach to productivity, how can I do it differently? Can I find a solution to this problem? And that's thinking outside the box. So for me, the myths are, you don't have to do it the same as it's always been done. I love that. I'm hands up to being a list maker, because it's so encouraging when we can tick something off our list. And I've had times in my life when I have not been at all productive, when I haven't, when I've been really quite I've not been able to get out of bed in the morning. How unproductive is that? And that comes down to the self-care piece. But actually, if even then I had things on my to-do list that were, get up, get dressed, feed the birds, and I'd had an amazing day. So I think productivity is not an overwhelm. It's having the enough on your to-do list, but not to the point that you go, I can't do all of this. As Lauren said, it's that I can, yes, I've got the big picture, but I'm going to choose one small step at a time.
Yeah,
I think a to-do list does that for me.
Fantastic. And creating a space where you're able to win, not setting yourself up for failure. So Steve, I'm really pleased Celia has taken us to this point, which is like, making sure that we're not doing things to the point where we're burnt out, but we're actually balancing that with self-care. So Steve, what sort of things, again, when you're in that busy, high-paced environment, how do you go about balancing productivity with self-care? And what are some of the things that you do, yourself as self-care practices? Oh, and just unmute, Steve.
I'm sorry about that.
There you go.
I appreciate where Celia was. I appreciate where Celia was coming from. from a creative perspective, because I feel like how we've done things is great for corporate teams and more, you know, task oriented, but the creative mind needs its space, and I live in between those two worlds. From a productivity perspective, I worry about how people have used this fragmented work environment, working from home, working remote, to isolate themselves from the greater responsibility of the team. And I feel that pressure as a team leader, as somebody who has to stand in front of clients and stand up publicly for our products. And I talk a lot about reputational risk and making sure that we're all mindful of the next piece of the puzzle. And that's my wail of doom in the middle of the night when I have to However, from a self-care perspective, I'm somebody who likes to take a walk. I love to dip myself in the ocean periodically when I need a little bit of a refresher, and sometimes taking that minute of silence from all of the noise in the world, from my personal life to my professional life. Taking that minute of silence can help me just realign what is actually happening, because we get so caught up in the drama of situations, we forget the reality of them. And some important people in my life constantly remind me, it's never as bad as you think. Take a deep breath, prioritize what those inputs are, and then realign the output. And I feel like taking that break. I love stretching. I've been visiting a place called the Stretch Lab, and I find that flexibility and helping my body feel better is a big help in my life, and part of my process, just to feel stronger in the world and feel stronger about myself. I love spending time with my kids and sharing with them the lessons I learned in my professional life and how it relates to what they're doing in school, be it presentations, be it understanding calendars and how to study and forecast the future needs. And I find that realigns to help maintain that air of positivity, even amongst some extraordinary stress.
I mean, you know, taking that time out to just recalibrate and get ourselves back to center and balance, and then giving yourself the opportunity to kind of, all right, now I'm ready to go again. I mean, it reminds me, you know, often as children, right, when children are getting a little bit out of control, we say, you know, go and have some time out. Essentially what you're saying is you're going to get some time out, but as an adult, and allowing yourself that moment of recalibration. So Thalia, in terms of you know, what we're talking about here and self-care, your piece of material that you've contributed to both the 5 Minutes From Me app and also to the book, do you want to talk a little bit about that and why you decided you wanted to contribute to this project, and what people can actually learn from the piece that you've contributed?
Sure. So I am a health and wellness blogger. So my focus is always going to be on self-care and wellness, because I believe that in order to perform our best, we need to be healthy, both mentally and physically. We can't show up every day as our best selves if we are working and pushing ourselves to burnout. It's just inevitable that, yeah, we will hit exhaustion. So when I first started my online business, I got sucked into this hustle culture that you kind of see online, where working 18-hour days is kind of seen as the norm. People say rest is lazy, don't hang out with your friends because they don't serve a purpose while you're trying to build your business. So yeah, I didn't really have a mentor. I didn't know where else to look. So I kind of looked at Instagram for information of how to build this business. So I kind of ended up in this hustle culture where I was literally working every single day, literally gave myself no time for rest, and classic, I did hit burnout, and I became very just uninterested in what I was doing, crying a lot as well. And I kind of was researching online ways to kind of just show myself grace, and how can I show up, be healthy, be productive, but still be able to, you know, dedicate time to the things that I still enjoy. You know, I love watching Netflix, I love doing puzzles, I love going on walks, and that's when I actually stumbled across the concept of self-care. So I researched that, and I kind of yeah, and I was like, okay, this is because before, this was back in 2020, actually during lockdown, and before then I'd never really heard about this concept of self-care, and I think it kind of did boom during lockdown, and I was like, okay, this is great, this is what I need. So ever since that day, I've kind of just been on this path where I have been focusing on self-care, focusing on my own health, and I've been a lot more productive as well in the process. And not only am I more productive, I actually wake up every day and enjoy what I do. So I just went off on a tangent there. I forgot the original question.
No, that's great. No, that's great. And I'm really interested to know, like, the piece that you've put inside of the book and inside of the app. Like, what benefit can somebody have by listening to your concepts and your advice that you've contributed?
I think it just gives a different perspective on productivity, because like I said, with this hustle culture, we kind of are brought up to believe that productivity is hitting goal after goal after goal, and working as much as you can to hit that goal. Whereas with my perspective of productivity, it's kind of being more mindful of your capabilities. And even when you've hit that goal, it's like everyone's always striving for the next goal. And I say, once you've hit a goal, just kind of sit with that a little bit, reflect on your past, what you did to get there, and kind of celebrate that win as well. Because I think a lot of people don't really celebrate where they get to. They kind of then just keep looking at the next goal. So yeah, my whole ethos is to be mindful. I don't believe that you should sacrifice self-care and the things that bring you joy in order to be productive. They can definitely work side by side. It's just having those strategies in place where you are showing up, working when you are productive, and then taking breaks. And as Steve and Cecilia showed, self-care doesn't have to be complicated or long either. It can be just really like short bursts. I think Steve, you said about going into the ocean, Celia, listening to the birds in the morning, and it's just stuff like that, stuff that really does just make you feel joyful and just boost your energy, so you are prepared to take on the rest of the day.
Absolutely. It's really interesting that you would talk about this culture that's emerged, I would say, over the last kind of, maybe it's always been there, but more so probably in my stratosphere, being this hustle culture, and people, hustle, go, and you've just got to get as much done and squeeze everything in, and when you're not doing that, you're to be on your phone, and you're going to be researching and keeping up to date with social media and everything else that's going on, and often to the detriment of your family, your health, your friends, all of your creativity. All of those things tend to go out of the window when we're in that hustle mentality. But it's certainly been something that has been, I'm going to say, hyped up and almost be created as being a sexy thing to do, is to be in the hustle culture. And what we're saying here is actually that's a really unhealthy space to be in. We want to be in a place where you're actually doing what you enjoy doing. Yes, strive for your goals. Yes, keep going, but do it in a really healthy and balanced way. Steve, I'm interested to know, when we talk about goals, because this shifting environment of the way in which we're now working, having a lot of our workforce being at home, working remotely. And you talked about this, sort of being the whale that keeps you up at night of, what are my team doing? How are they, are they making steps towards achieving the goals that we've set for our company? What sort of things do you do to help your team stay on track and ensure that they are performing at the best they possibly can in terms of their levels of productivity?
It's really challenging because we are all remote, and you have things that go well in the day, and it's great to celebrate them, and it's great to call people out and make sure they feel they feel that value reciprocated back. But oftentimes, I don't know if I'm alone in this, but oftentimes things aren't going well, and deadlines are being challenged, and it's hard for people now who are operating in isolation to understand what the greater picture is. And I feel like a constant reiteration of the timeline of the customer's expectations, but more so a constant reiteration of our commitment to what we're doing as a team to make sure that people understand that their piece of the puzzle is actually a piece of a puzzle. And it's that picture that is creating success. And taking accountability myself for my role within the team, but also making sure people understand the accountability that they have taken on by accepting a role, and the need within the greater picture, the reputational risk that's involved for the company, for the person, for the people who are making the investment to make paychecks and all of that happen. It's really important that people understand all components of the job at hand, so that they can be mindful of that within their interpretation of how their day is going. I know it's hard. Some people are expecting praise, and they get criticism, and there's this conflict that's going on, and that's really a misunderstanding. And as a leader, I have to be regularly checking in and criticizing myself to make sure, does this person understand the goal? Does this person appreciate the goal? And the need to maintain a level of productivity, because if they're late and then they expect praise, but I'm still getting dumped on from the other direction, they need to appreciate that I might not be in a place to give praise. I might be getting a lot of challenges, financial, personal, and it's important, I think, that we really communicate the big picture and reiterate the steps and make sure that people understand that puzzle piece is part of that, and it's incomplete without it.
I mean, I love the fact that, you've kept this very real, because not everything is not always, sunshine and rainbows, is it? Managing a team of people, particularly when they're remote, can often be a challenge, and balancing that piece of, making sure that people are responsible, balancing your level of communication as a leader, ensuring that we're sharing the big picture and the vision to get our team members to actually buy in and engage with that. And then creating this environment where people are self-regulating, self-responsible, and actually building a level of trust between you and your team and, every stakeholder that's involved in your business. We want to make sure that we've built this level of trust, so that when things don't go the way that we, plan them, because sometimes they don't, that it's okay. We've built up enough trust in the bank that we can actually pick each other up and go again. And I think that's really important. And I'm really pleased that you've spoken honestly about the fact that sometimes it's not always easy, because if we paint the picture of sunshine and rainbows all the time, we start to get to a point where we're isolating people. So I love the fact that you've kept that very, very real. So Celia, because you're obviously the creative, you've written books, you're doing the creative piece on the regular, and taking those times to just sit and listen to the birds and enjoy nature. What sort of things, like if somebody was reading the Me Time book, what sort of advice would you give them to get the most out of the Me Time book? What would you say they should do if you were to give them, one or two tips?
Oh, great question. Another thank you. I think what I love about the book is the variety, and I'm a great believer that we are given the messages that we need to hear in the right time, at the right moment. And so for me, what I would love to do, sometimes you go, oh, well, I don't know, where shall I start? Oh, well, shall I read this one? Well, by the time you've done that, if you're giving yourself 5 minutes me time, you can very easily procrastinate for 5 minutes and you've not done anything for yourself. So for me, I would book, I go, you know what, I'm going to have 5 minutes for me. And I would just open it up and I would see what wants to come. What's the chapter that wants to come? We receive so much more information than we actually use. at a conscious level, but our subconscious knows. So if you spent some time when you first get your book just going through and having a look, then actually you could just tap into that. What do I need in this moment? That is going to really open rather than your conscious mind saying, well, I need this. Well, maybe your subconscious is saying, actually, you probably need something else. I love that we've spoken about the connection with nature, that real connection of being present. Now, for me, as a creative, as a visual, I love this book. It's something I can get hold of. I can see, the actual book itself is it's just beautiful. Actually, it's so nice. I could just sit and stroke the cover of this book. It sounds crazy. You're talking to a creative, because it's beautiful. And what does that do? What does that mean? Actually, what it does is it brings me into the very present moment. It brings me into my body. It connects me. And you go, oh, yeah, that's what I needed in that moment. So, and I love those beautiful spaces for doodling in, and how many of us have sat maybe on a phone call, in a meeting, and you've doodled in the margins. I give you permission to doodle in your book. And that's a piece that for us, we go, well, am I allowed to do that? And you go, yes, you are. You are. You've got beautiful spaces that you can write in. It wants to be seen. Books want to be said that from my own book. You've got that opportunity to connect with the book, and when you connect book, you will connect with yourself. So that would be my little tip, because it's just lovely.
I'm so pleased, and I'm sure Lauren is too. Her little eyes would be lighting up there saying, thank goodness. I'm so pleased that you really enjoying, because I know Lauren has put a lot of thought into not just the content of the book, but the way in which it looks, the way in which it feels, the way in which it was packaged. And this is both Marg and Lauren have done that, the way in which it's packaged and presented to you so that you want to engage with it. You want to pick it up and just, stroke and hug it and be involved with it on the daily. And I think that's one of the things that, taking out of what you've just said there, Celia, is, giving yourself the time to just sit with it and just take it wherever it needs to go. If you open up the pages and you're flicking through them and you go, that's the thing that resonates with me today, and you're almost using it like that type of tool, that it's almost in a guide that's going to say, here's the thing you need to hear in this moment. So I love that you've picked up on that. Steve, with sometimes as I'm going to say, not that I'm a male, but males can often not always enjoy kind of the touchy-feely stuff. How do you feel about the book, and how would you go about utilizing that in your day?
I can appreciate that, and I think it's that thing of vulnerability that men struggle with. I'm thinking in terms of practicality, and be it even as far as sessions with a therapist and whatnot. I'm constantly asking myself, what do I want to get out of something, and what is the best way to get that experience? And what I like about this book, and it started with the app, obviously listening to other people's segments on the app and really considering my own, is to take these little lessons, and if something has resonated with me, to apply them directly into my world. We consume this content for various reasons, but a lot of it in this category is for ourselves and how to have that self-improvement. Well, self-improvement means taking responsibility for self and improving. So I like to take these lessons, I call them, and bring them into my world, take a situation and dissect that situation to think, okay, well, how can I apply these principles into getting a better outcome, or changing the future in some way for a better situation for myself, and just really dissecting the parts. A guy that I admire a lot is a record producer called Rick Rubin. He's famous for saying everything is possible if you break it down into small enough steps. And I take a lot in that. I've been forced to work with complicated people. I've been forced to work with complicated teams that I don't know all of the moving parts, making decisions when you don't have all of the information. A great book by poker player Annie Duke. And I've worked in situations that are very volatile because of a lot of the reputational risk. Somebody's going on stage and they're going to be criticized, or the product is going out and it's going to be criticized, and people might not be pointing at me personally or somebody on the team down the line, but there's a lot of criticism going somewhere. So I take a lot of responsibility for that. So constantly looking to improve, to make more efficient, to have better productivity, as we're talking about, is important. So I feel like breaking it down, applying those lessons, and seeing if I can get a better outcome to better my process. And I think men in particularly will get a lot out of the mechanics of things if we can relate them in those steps.
I'm glad too that you've spoken here about this vulnerability, because in this world, often we can put up these facades, that put on the mask and everything's okay. But sometimes it's just giving yourself permission to be a little vulnerable, to go a little deeper, and to explore what is it that I actually need. The other thing that I really liked about what you spoke about in terms of the book is the fact that it has lots of different people in it. And Thalia spoke about this a little earlier too. It's like you're getting, this gives you, the book and the app gives you an opportunity to tap into the minds in a very short space of time, in just 5 minutes a day, to experts from all over the world. And all you need to do is just take that one little tidbit, that one piece of advice, that one piece of information, and then apply that to your day. And you imagine, we've got 30 contributors to this first series of the Me Time book. You imagine if you did that every single day, what amazing accomplishments you could achieve in just 30 days if you just did that. And you actually not just read it and thought, oh, that's a nice thing, but you actually read it, and from a productivity point of view, you actually implemented and took the time to implement that piece of information into your daily life. Your life will change radically. So I want to go to Marg, because before we sort of wrap up today, I want to give Marg an opportunity to sort of bring the two of these things together. So we've got both the Me Time app and the book. Marg, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of how we meld the two of these together, and the best way that somebody could utilize both the book and the app to get that best level of productivity and create the best version of themselves on a daily basis in just that 5 minutes?
Yes, great. Thanks, Tracy. I think with the app, a lot of us, when we download apps and we say no to notifications, and we do have a notification in there, and I think it is really important for people with this being something to help them every day to, first of all, say yes to the notification, and whether that's at 9 o'clock in the morning or at 7 o'clock in the morning, or whether it's, if you have a routine of having a coffee at a certain time, setting it for that time, or when you're getting dressed for the day, just to listen to the actual audios, because, I think we can and we do learn in many ways. So I find sort of listening to the audios is helpful. And then sometimes for me, what we're talking about earlier and being mindful, sometimes I will just sit outside and leave my phone inside. And it's like, oh, do I really want to do that? But when I do, I find for me that creativity comes into me. It just lets the stresses go out of my head if I'm just having that little bit of time for me. And sometimes I will just have a look through the book and just, like Celia, just hit the nail on the head. It's not necessarily what we need to go looking for each day, but it's also what the universe is telling us that we need. So just flipping through the book and seeing a chapter and thinking, oh, and just having that bit of a quick read through, 5 minutes. And it is then about just something, you come across something that reframes you in that moment and then gives you that time to go on from there. So I think they both work together. As I said, some people, we love the touchy-feely and yes, the quality of the book and how beautiful it is, you know, and also too, we're busy, and we also just need to be able to sometimes have the auditory side of, you know, listening to the content in that regard. But I think for me too, it is very much about the diversity of the speakers that are in here, and there is something for everybody, and it is about actually putting it into practice, as you say, you know, just if it's just one thing that you learn for that day, and taking that and utilizing that further to help ourselves to be more productive, to internally be more satisfied with ourselves that we have been productive, that we've achieved something, that we can tick it off. It just gives us that drive to move on, to do bigger and better things. And ultimately the aim of this, of both the app and also of the book, is that, you know, we want to be able to help people in their lives. And, you know, I've had this vision, and Lauren has always been on board with me with this vision as well too, and all credit to her for, you know, me actually, I think, recognizing I could see things happening. She has far more creativity than me, and you know, it was a step for me to say, okay, I need to step back here and hand this to Lauren, because she's going to do a much better job with this, you know, than I ever would. And when I saw the concept of the book, I was like, oh wow, this is amazing, and people are going to love using it. So I think it is really about, as I said, ultimately we want to be able to help people, to help them to improve their lives, and whether that is professionally as well as personally. And the whole concept is that, you know, these few minutes can help us each day. And so, you know, I think it is really just having the difference of both together, and they both work together. So, yeah, I think it's really, you know, just take that time for yourself, and it is just take that few minutes for yourself to appreciate it and enjoy it as well.
Like I said at the beginning here, Marg, I mean, I think both you and Lauren have done a fantastic job, and sort of understanding at the time what was going on in the market, and not just understanding it, but listening and doing something about it, actually getting really productive and wanting to make a change. I mean, there's a vast difference between people sort of recognizing things and going, hey, something needs to change about that particular situation. Then it's a whole different kettle of fish when someone says, I recognize that and I'm actually going to do something about it. And from that moment, you know, the 5 Minutes for Me app was born, and it has just progressed from there into the book. And I know that there are a lot of other things in the pipeline that are coming out from the 5 Minutes for Me team, because it's a very exciting time. But I think the ethos that you have for the business is fantastic, and that is centered around truly wanting to help somebody. You know, there'll be someone out there, and it's interesting because even as a podcaster, I know that in any moment I could speak about one particular thing and you get feedback. I needed to hear that today. I needed that piece of advice, that piece of information. And Thalia mentioned this a little bit earlier in her early days of being an entrepreneur, you know, trying to do this on her own, and then going to, you know, the metaverse and having a look and seeing what are other people doing, and falling into the space of, you know, the hustle and grind mentality, because you think that's the way to go. So I think it's really a credit to both of you that you've actually taken the time to put this together and actually do it and bring it to market, and bring these amazing people together to actually highlight their expertise to help somebody else. Before we wrap up today's session, I want to allow everybody a moment to give their number one. Absolutely, go for it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, like, from me personally, having worked in the industry of professional speakers for booking them for clients, conferences and events, this world of the 5 Minutes for Me app and Me Time is just, I cannot even express how beautiful a world it is to work with these people who see our vision and see what, you know, and also want to be a part of helping other people. And it has changed me. I can tell you, it has totally changed me in life to realize how many wonderful and beautiful people there are out there in the world who also want to help others. So I just wanted to say that, because it's been such a life-changing thing for me to recognize, and as I said, I feel incredibly honored to work with all these people. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Marg. I'm pleased that you jumped in and said that, because it needs to be acknowledged that these sorts of things don't happen without the collective, without every single one of you who's been a contributor to the app and to the book. You are the ones that have made this happen. So thank you very much. So I want to leave with some parting words from each of you. And I want you to give your number one productivity tip, or just a piece of advice that you would like to leave with each of our listeners today. So let's start with you, Celia.
Thank you. My experience is that the greatest transformation that we experience, the greatest change that we have, and the greatest area of growth is when we are in the challenge, when we are having the unproductive day, and the day when I feel really stuck. I'm not getting done what I think I need to get done. Those are the challenging times, and it's that we experience the greatest transformation. So my tip, my word of wisdom party is to say, just sit with that and say, what am I learning? What am I learning in this moment, in this challenge, about how I can move forward, embrace my creativity, and therefore improve my productivity?
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you. And Steve,
Thank you.
Your parting words. What is your number one tip for productivity?
I say thank you very much to be included in the book. It's an honor to be with such amazing people, and bravo on getting it together. Please go out and pick it up. My number one tip is to know the goal. Know the goal for the piece that you play, and know the goal for the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve on the team. And if you want to achieve something, be curious, ask a lot of questions, understand the objectives, and go out and just be awesome.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Stephen. All the best with everything you've got going on. I know you've got a super busy year ahead, and family and what have you to tend to. So, and managing people remotely is always a bit of a challenge. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
And Thalia.
There's so many tips. It's hard to choose one, but I think for me, and something that has helped me recently, is to kind of every morning I wake up and just ask myself, what does my best look like today? Because it's not always going to be 100%. I don't think it's going to be 100% for anyone. Sometimes it's going to be 50%, 90%, 20%. So I think it's just kind of asking yourself that question in the morning and establishing your daily best, so you kind of know how to go into the day, and just give yourself grace, and don't beat yourself up if that is the case, if it is only 20%. I think that productivity, it's not always what you can achieve in the day or what you can tick off. It's kind of just, it can be something else entirely. It might just look like getting out of bed and having a shower and just kind of getting dressed for the day. Just start each day and ask yourself, what does my best look like today?
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Thalia.
Yeah.
And Lauren, we've got to come to you. We'll come to you, Lauren, because this is where this book started. I know with you and Marg, with your kind of heads together, but you're the brains behind putting this beautiful piece of work together. So we'll allow you to have this moment to with some parting words about productivity.
Oh, look, my honestly biggest parting word would be keep it realistic. I have learned from saying, yeah, I can do that, and getting too overwhelmed. And that's when you're not productive, is when you're too overwhelmed. keeping it realistic, having realistic timelines, allowing time for lunch, allowing time for a break, allowing time to go for a walk in the afternoon. Just that is when I personally get the most done, and when I feel the most productive as well, when I'm not stressed and not too much to do. So from the get-go, like Steve's always saying, planning where the end goal is, how you're going to get there, and set a realistic timeline. Honestly, that's my biggest tip, I would say.
Well, thanks so much, Lauren. Well, there you go. There you have it, everybody. You've heard from some amazing experts today in how we go about creating a really productive, but also happy, balanced, joyful life. So I want to say today's a wrap. This is the very first episode in the Me Time book series, which we are super excited. It is going to be live and available on Amazon on the 18th of April. So make sure that you mark your calendars and you get on over to Amazon and purchase your copy of the Me Time book on the 18th of April. So we've had some amazing guests today who have spoken and shared with you practical tips and insights on how to manage your time more effectively and create the best amount of productivity in your life. And if you want to learn more about how to do this with the power of 5 minutes for me, then I'd encourage you to head on over to the App Store. You can grab yourself the app. You can actually download it and get a free trial. Have a little listen to some of the amazing speakers that we've got in there. And I am sure that you're going to go, oh my gosh, I just need to incorporate this just 5 minutes a day into my life each and every single day. And make sure that you do head on over to Amazon on the 18th of April and you get yourself, maybe Marg or Lauren can hold up that amazing book and you can get yourself your hands on the book. Now, if you would like to be part of, thank you guys, if you'd like to be part of this actual launch supporters group, inside of the comments, we're going to make sure that there is a link there. You can go and be part of this amazing group. You'll actually be inside of the group with these amazing speakers, but you'll also get to see some behind the scenes of what we're doing to actually launch this book. And you too can help us become the #1 best-selling author with the brand new book, Me Time. So I want to say a huge big thank you to all of our amazing panelists, also to Marg and to Lauren for creating this space and giving me the opportunity to host. And I want to say thank you to you as our viewers, and please make sure that you hang around because you just never know. Come out of this series might just be a little podcast that you guys might also be able to either be a participant and a panelist on or a avid listener. So thanks very much. Have a fantastic week. And don't forget, go and carve out just 5 minutes a day for yourself and make sure that you prioritize well-being in your life. Thanks very much. Bye for now.